I'm joined here today by the one, the only Chris Gonzalez, coming off the win over Vladimir Tokov at Bellator 244. What's going on, man? How are you?
Not much, brother. Just enjoying some sunshine and just hanging out with the dogs right now. So, uh,
We're glad to hear it. What
yeah,
kind of
just
dogs are we talking? We saw them real quick. What kind of dogs are we talking here?
yeah, we got a couple of mutts, kind of like myself. So the little one here, Nala, she's a Rottweiler Husky, and then the bigger one over there, that's actually her son, and he's a Rottweiler Husky Pit Bull mix.
Wow,
So
it's an interesting mix. How's the energy level and all that? I assume they keep you moving a lot.
yeah, for sure. They give me like a 2 or 3 day period where they're kind of cool, and then anything after that, they start letting me know it's time to take them on, an adventure of some sort. So they keep me busy. Not that I need any help doing that, but
Right.
they're definitely high energy dogs for sure.
Well, I assume during quarantine it must have been good too, right? Because you have that you have that motivation that you need to go out and you need to exercise with them. So I guess there was some positive there, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Luckily for me, I live in Northern California too. So while everyone was quarantining inside, I still had the luxury of like going on different like hikes and things of that nature. So I was staying active and doing what I could given the circumstances. So
And so let's talk about this fight a little bit. Obviously, it seemed like a lot of the Bellator stuff was very short notice. What was the notice like for you for this fight?
yeah, it was short notice for me as well, as I'm sure it was for everyone else too. They called me, I want to say about 3 weeks before the event and offered me the fight. And I was still actually recovering from a couple uh, little injuries, I guess, that I had from my previous fight. So I had taken a little time off. Initially, my coaches wanted me to see if I could get it pushed back to sometime in September, just so I had a little bit more like time to prepare. But Bellator wasn't sure if the fight would still be on the table or even if they'd be able to, keep the events going, just because everything's so up in the air right now. That I liked the matchup. I knew it was going to be a good opportunity for me to showcase myself against another undefeated top prospect within the organization. So I didn't want to miss that chance. So we proceeded with the fight and we came away with the win. So
How
everything
nervous were
worked out.
you? How nervous were you accepting the fight on short notice? Because, like you mentioned, you had some things you were recovering from. The camp is going to be short. I mean, I assume it must have been very tough for you to accept this fight. Obviously, fighters fight, but it's a lot of circumstances going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk involved by taking it on short notice. But I'm never too far away from being in, fight shape. I knew that I'd be cutting it kind of close. But I just got with my team, my strength and conditioning coach, my head coach Danny Castillo, my boxing coach Joe Rodriguez, and we just formulated a game plan to maximize the time that we had, and we executed it perfectly. I felt great in there. Conditioning was on point. You're always obviously going to get tired in a fight. It's a 15-minute fight, so it's like no matter how good of shape you're in, you either go harder or you're always gonna. I don't like to leave anything in the tank. When I'm after a fight, I like to know that I had nothing left. So, it felt good. I walked away with the win, and you know, conditioning, everything was on point. So.
And so what was the focus during training camp? Because with only about 2-3 weeks, like you guys can't do like this whole elaborate game plan and everything. What was the focus? Like you mentioned you're in shape. Are you guys game planning specifically, or is it just making sure that physically you're ready when you go out there?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just making sure you're in good enough shape to go out there and, fight for 15 minutes. Obviously, you always want to go in there and get a finish and, keep it out of the judges' hands. But, I always have nothing but the utmost respect for my opponents. And I assume it's going to be a 15-minute war. So I'm always prepared for that. But the game plan was just to get in the best shape possible and, go out there and just try to assert myself and walk away with the W. So.
And so how are things for you weight cut wise? Like did everything go smooth? Was it a little bit more, I'm sure, condensed than usual? How was that process for you?
Yeah, I tend to eat pretty clean like all year round for the most part. I always give myself a couple week period right after the fight to kind of just like take out a little, I guess overeat a little. But
Yeah.
leading up to the fight, my weight was pretty controlled. I've been making the same weight class for probably about 10 years now. I wrestled at 157 in college, and then I'm fighting at 155 or 156 with the 1 pound allowance. So honestly, the weight cut just gets easier and easier. The night before, I was like, I went to sleep a pound and a half over. I woke up and I was only a half a pound over. Hopped in the bath for like 20 minutes, and we were good to go. So it wasn't bad at all.
And so the results for you are obviously very good, right? You beat one of Fedor Emelianenko's guys. Obviously, everybody knows the heavyweight GOAT and all that stuff. How do you
For
look back on
sure.
your performance in this fight?
You know, I'm always going to be my own biggest critic, and I think there's always some things that I could have done better. But I was also very limited in that fight. I couldn't throw any kicks. I actually had ankle surgery lined up prior to even taking that fight. So I was limited with what I could do. So I'm going to have a little ankle cleanup. I got a little wrist procedure I need to get done too. So going into it, I knew I was going to be limited. I just needed to, just keep my guard high, make sure that I wasn't covering up too much, striking on the brakes, controlling the ties. I honestly, I underestimated his grappling a little bit. I thought it was going to be, I didn't think he was going to be that high level of a grappler. And not necessarily that he was like extremely high level, but coming from that Sambo background, he gives me a lot of different looks and reactions that I wasn't used to. That kind of made me a little hesitant with the things that I traditionally like to go for. So that caught me off guard a little bit. But I knew he had a tendency to fade towards the later rounds. So my game plan was to go in there and move early on, let him kind of, blow his load in a sense. And just try to assert myself and keep that pressure going into the later rounds.
And so what does that do for you mentally? I know a lot of people are curious about that fighter mindset, but what does it do for you mentally going into a fight like that? And you know that physically you're a little bit limited, like you mentioned, your ankles and things like that. Like, what does that do for you mentally?
Man, as a fighter, I just try to control, the controllables. I try not to focus on, the things that I really can't control, whether it be little injuries or things of that nature. For the most part, going into a fight, I don't think anyone's ever 100%. At least I haven't been in my experience. But just going into those deep waters and being able to, to persevere throughout that, I think, that's what champions are made of. So, hopefully it's a sign of things to come. But, I'll never be the kind of guy who hurts his ankle or hurts something in the middle of a fight and uses that as like a cop out. I accepted the fight and, you got to go out there and perform.
And so this fight now moves you up to 5-0. You beat Fedor's guys. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of extra attention around you. What did your social media look like when you logged back on after the fight?
Yeah, I definitely had a bunch of people showing me love, which is always a good feeling. But it hasn't popped off quite the way I would like for
Yeah.
it to have just yet. I think that'll come once I start getting on the main card more so than like these prelims where, there's probably not as nearly as many people tuning into them. So hopefully after this performance, they can get me on the main card here soon. And, that'll help with, the exposure and things like that.
But so you've been with Bellator, I believe your past 4 fights, it's pretty much almost your entire professional career. Has that been helpful for you being on such a big platform where, like you mentioned, the prelims, it sort of doesn't get you quite as much attention?
Yeah, I've been competing at the highest level forever now. I was an Olympic athlete. I made a world team in 2016. So I'm used to competing against the best guys and things of that nature. It's nice to have Bellator as my promoter so early in my career and be able to maintain that high level competition. At the end of the day, I want to be the best, and to be the best, you have to compete against and beat the best. And I feel like Bellator is, right up there with the rest of them. So it's great. It's great being a part of their organization.
Well, it makes sense that Bellator would pick you up as well, right? Because we've seen them recently. They've sort of been investing in all these Olympic guys, right? It seems like all the high-level wrestlers, everyone, I mean, they've been heavily investing in you guys.
Yeah, and a big part of it, especially coming from an Olympic sport like wrestling, where you're not really getting paid. I was the number
Yeah.
one athlete for a period of time, and I was making like $1,000 a month, and and that was I'm the number one athlete. I had 2 jobs at the time. I was a student as well. It's kind of hard to maintain and do what you got to do as an athlete when you're juggling so many different things. But I think Bellator has done a good job at recognizing talent, from, people in the sport such as wrestling like myself. And they're offering them fair contracts to where they can, cut back on, not have to work 2 jobs or not have to, juggle so many things just to make ends meet, and helping develop them, put some money in their pockets and just building that rapport and relationship with them so that when they do develop their skill sets, they're going to be more inclined to, renegotiate and re-sign with him because they've been with him since day one.
That makes sense. I mean, it's an investment. It's what it is, and it's a smart one. Listen, I kind of have one last question for you, kind of a two-part question. I know it can be a little bit tough, but realistically, when do you think we're going to see you fight again, and who do you want next?
Yeah, like I said, I got a couple things I'm gonna get fixed here, and they're minor procedures, but it's definitely something I need to get done as I'm climbing the ranks and fighting tougher guys. You know, fighting at a limited capacity, you can only do that for so long. So I'm going to address those things. I'm going to get with my team and see what the recovery timeline's looking like. But hopefully soon, you know, I like to get about 4 fights in a year with everything going on. That's kind of hard with the pandemic and all. So if I could fight again in the next 3 to 4 months, you know, that'd be right on schedule and that'd be perfect for me. As far as opponents go, you know, I'm not really in the calling out business. So, I mean, whoever they offer me, you know, as long as the risk and the reward are on par with one another, then, you know, I'll be willing to fight anybody.
All right, well, there it is. Listen, man, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the victory, and hopefully we see you heal up fast and you'll be out there soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for your time.